Hi, you've clicked onto today's tropical tidbit for Friday, and we're looking at a fairly quiet day in the tropics, at least compared to the last couple of weeks, which have been pretty active. The main thing to look at here is the African wave train just running right through the Caribbean here with several tropical waves coming westward. And they look a little bit intimidating right now with a lot of convection blowing up with most of them, but there's a tut up here. If we turn on these high level winds, you can see the tut low out here, and tropical waves like to blow up convection as they approach the tut, especially when it's near the Caribbean. The upper level divergence helps these thunderstorms go off, but it also shears them, which means that they're not likely to develop until they get farther west over here, where sometimes they can encounter more favorable conditions. And they might, conditions might be marginally favorable to favorable generally in this area during the next week or so, and we'll have to watch some of these as they come across. But we've got some decent surface ridging that will be building over the Gulf of Mexico and the southwest Atlantic over here, which is going to shove most of these west or west-northwest into Central America, and possibly even out into the eastern Pacific where they might see some activity. So they won't have much of a chance to develop over here. This one has some nice level of vorticity to it, but this is getting shoved west, and that will probably be the story, is that although these do have to be watched in this area, a lot of them will get shoved farther west before having a chance to really develop. They won't be coming up into the Gulf of Mexico like they have been over the last couple of weeks with Alex and Tropical Depression 2. And over here we've got our cutoff trough split low off of Cape Hatteras over here. Nice big feature over here. It hasn't really been able to bundle the energy and train from an old tropical wave, so the convection, what little there is, has been sort of spread out, and it hasn't been able to warm its core enough to be declared a real subtropical low. It's getting close, but it's going to run out of time here. It's got a really nice little curlicue sitting right over Cape Hatteras over here, with some showers moving in west of Virginia Beach over here, and some rain down here in North Carolina, South Carolina rather. And that'll be the story for them. It's just some scattered showers with this. Not really a threat to develop. This will be getting pulled northward within the next 24 hours by this front coming across, and it might be sending up some tropical energy into this front, ending up in some fairly heavy rains for the northeast this weekend as this front comes in and this gets entrained into it. Now, our best chance for tropical mischief over the next 10 days may actually come out here to the east. Here we are looking at Africa with several tropical waves coming across, and this one here is a big one, but it's getting sacrificed to the god of dust and dry air over here. This is a dust storm that came off of Africa, this region where you see little clouds except for this low-level stratocumulus field indicating stable air due to very dry air that came off of the desert over here. And this is heading west and is going to rip apart this tropical wave and knock it right down as it comes west over here. But this is clearing the way a little bit, sacrificing itself to moisten up the environment over in this area so that these two behind it may have a more favorable environment. These are the two to watch as they're pretty well defined and coming in behind this wave, which will clear out the dust for them, and these may have to be watched. The European was developing this one a couple of days ago for several runs in a row. It has since backed off. The GFS was developing both of these at one point, but has also backed off a little bit. But we'll have to keep an eye on them as they come across. This is the European day 10 from the 0Z run last night. Not much to really look at here. There's a tropical wave coming across the central Atlantic, but the bigger picture I want you to look at here is the Azores high up here, 1,031 millibars, and the pressures across the tropics. By day 10, the European starts squishing this high down and gets the pressures rather high over the tropics. It presses the 1,018 millibar isobar all the way down here south of 20 north and puts the 1016 isobar all the way down into the deep tropics, and you don't find anything below 1014 millibars unless you get over here to the African monsoonal circulation and over here in the Caribbean where pressures are naturally lower. There's a little bit of a model war, or more like a little spat, between the European and the GFS going on here. If we look at the GFS at the same time, day 10, you notice that it has the 1018 isobar north of 20 north, and it has sub 1014 millibar pressures through the deep tropics, and even some sub 1012 over here in the eastern Atlantic and over in the western Caribbean as well. And this is significant because lower pressures over the tropics usually result in weaker trade winds, weaker easterly trade winds coming across, and the weaker the trade winds are, the more convergence you get. If you have screaming trade winds coming across, it ruins surface convergence and doesn't allow tropical waves to amplify as well or as easily, and it also blows more dust off of the African desert when you have trade winds coming across. But when pressures are lower, the trade winds are weaker, you get more convergence, tropical waves can amplify and develop easier, and lower pressures naturally allow air to rise easier. You can see some activity going on over here in the Eastern Atlantic and in the Western Caribbean, the areas we were mentioning to watch over the next 10 days. And the GFS is also showing a favorable upper level pattern for Cape Verde mischief. Notice over here by day 12, the upper ridgeway over here, look at the upper easterlies all the way across the basin, all the way up to 20 north over here, upper easterlies at 200 millibars. Pretty amazing to see. I will be very impressed if this pattern verifies like this. Upper level winds at this level, even though they're out of the east, which is usually favorable for tropical development, if you get them too strong, like in here they might be over the central Atlantic, sometimes they can shear systems and be unfavorable. But generally, when you have tropical waves coming across, easterly winds in the upper levels are actually favorable, certainly much more favorable than the upper level westerlies, which are usually dominant, at least lightly, across this area climatologically. But when you get these easterlies, it's a favorable pattern, and we'll have to watch for this. This really opens the door for systems to develop farther north and start coming into these areas. We're getting into the meat of the season now. We're heading into the second half of July, where it would not be out of the ordinary to see our first Cape Verde development out here in the Eastern Atlantic and try to come across. So it's not unheard of to start seeing these things try to develop. We're most certainly going to see them start to develop out here in August, so it wouldn't be a shock at all to see something try to develop out in this area during the second half of this month. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Overall, it's going to be probably a fairly quiet next week or so in the tropics, and we should enjoy it while we have it, because it's not going to be long before there may not be much of a break between storms here, because the pattern is setting up, the season is setting up. It's going to be really active once it gets going, so hopefully everyone's prepared. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.